Okay. Namaste, everyone. My name is Sudha Jagannathan. I'm with Coalition of Hindus of North America, or CoHNA. CoHNA is a grassroots advocacy organization, and we represent the rights of Hindus, civic and human rights in Canada and the United States. Please check us out on social media, like us, subscribe to us, and become our supporters. And today, I welcome all of you to a session of CoHNA Dialogues in a continuing series on the lived experiences of minorities of India. If you are a reader of New York Times, Washington Post, BBC, or NPR, you will hear a story that quite doesn't match up with the Pew Research Survey of 2021 or the dialogue we'll have with my guest today. So my guest is Jerome Anto from India. Thank you, Jerome, for joining CoHNA Dialogues.
Thank you. Namaste. Namaste to all.
Jerome is a politico-religious commentator, and he has been standing up and giving voice to, I think, the majority of India's Christians in what is the real experience of being a proud Indian Christian. So actually, Jerome, I'm going to start with that. And just for everybody, this is an important conversation because we all need to know what is fact versus fiction. And the fiction is promoted by taxpayer agencies in the United States and many other entities. We'll kind of get into it. So Jerome, let me ask you, what made you stand up and talk about, what is the life of an Indian Christian?
A life of an Namaste, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me on your program. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm sure we will put some spark in this conversation. I'm sure many of us, of those in the US and Americas, would have heard a lot of stories about Christians in India and the minorities. And that's what we want to place on the table today. As far as the Constitution is concerned, let me go to the core of it, the Constitution of India. It gives sweeping privileges and rights to the minorities. And this is milked to the maximum by two religions, both the Abrahamic religion, that is the Christians and the Muslims. In fact, I would not hesitate to say that in a majority nation like India, where Hindus are majority, Hindus are at the receiving end and as good as second-class citizens. So that's where I place Christians and the minorities in particular, as far as where we placed in the Indian society.
That is actually very interesting because I grew up in Kerala, in the south, and I went to convent school with Muslims and Christians and even a Jewish girl. And for all my life in India, I felt like we were all one big family, right? The concept of the Hindu Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, right? One family. But now I hear a lot from my Christian classmates about their anxiety for Christians in India. But their personal experiences are good. They are not facing oppression. They are business people, plantation owners, professionals. So they are not facing it in their lives, but they say other Christians are facing. So I'm kind of like, okay, where are these other Christians who are facing this? Is this true? What do you think, Jerome? Is there oppression of Christians in India?
So let me ask you a counter question, not just to you, but all of them, all of those who are sitting out there thousands of miles away. What is the picture that is painted in your nation about minorities in India? What is it that you all hear and read about is what I want to know.
Yes, the general narrative is that India and the Hindus are oppressing the Christians and Muslims. Only those two communities we hear mostly about. We also hear about Dalit and Adivasi and scheduled caste and everything. But primarily, when we say minorities, it's the 200 million Muslims and I guess about 100 million Christians maybe. They are oppressed. And I'm going to show you the USCIRF, oh, sorry, you cannot see it. Okay, there is a USCIRF report on Indian Christians, right? And it says Indian Christians are maligned, assaulted, prevented from practicing their religions. The states are going door to door to see who is being converted. And it might be in a state that you are living in. And they talk about one person, Stan Swami, and I think it's Tennessee is trying to create something around Stan Swami. So somebody is bringing all of this to United States. So every story in Washington Post, New York Times, and all of this media that I mentioned has a very negative story about Hindus in India treating its minorities, to the point that my colleagues, Chinese American, Caucasian American, when I talk to them, they say, I've been hearing a lot about this oppression. What is the truth in it? So then I have to explain to them. And it's very hard when the popular narrative has laid a foundation that says India is oppressive. So that is a general impression of minorities and their plight in India.
Okay, so let me throw some light to the statements what you mentioned. If I have to be polite enough, then I need to say those are all lies. Quote unquote, they are lies, because this is something that is being manufactured by sinister motive, and those who have a vested interest. And those who believe in it, are those people like the way the 10 blind men describing the elephant. So I am on ground zero. I am a resident of this nation. I am a Christian. And if you're talking about oppression, if you're talking about persecution, then the first thing that everybody needs to know is this: there is no churches, there is no mosques, right? So I come from a very small city called Bangalore in India. It's a very small city. It's not even a state. It's less than half the size of Bombay and less than half the size of Delhi. Okay. And let me put some data in front of you. A small city of approximately 5% Christians in Bangalore. We have total 349 churches in Bangalore. 349 churches. If there is persecution, if there is oppression, if there is destruction, how are these churches existing? I'm not pulling this out of my pocket. I wish to invite anybody and everybody, please Google out the number of churches that are existing in Bangalore. You will get the names of those churches. You will get the addresses of the churches. You will get the names of the priests, the pastors, and the phone numbers of those people who run these churches. So and 349 is only, I have taken 4 churches, because I am sure you all know that there are multiple denominations. And in Bangalore itself, there are close to 109 denominations. I have taken the top 4 denominations. 349 churches. The Roman Catholic Church itself has got 104 churches in Bangalore. I will give you some numbers. Prior to 1947, there were 20 churches in Bangalore. After 1947, there are 84 churches in Bangalore. Between 2014 and 2022, as we speak now, we have 18 churches, 18 new churches. So where is the question of, I'm talking about only one church, that's the Catholic Church I'm talking about. 18 churches from 2014 to 2022. So what does it talk about? This is an absolute lie. This is propaganda against our nation. This is to bring disrepute to our nation, and those who are peddling this information, I would like to classify them as anti-nationals. This is what I could say there.
That is, those statistics are, just for Bangalore. And I believe that the Christian church is the biggest non-agricultural landowner in India. And so there are 2 government agencies that own the most land in India. Then we have the Christian church, which is the largest non-agricultural landowner. There is the Islamic Waqf board, that is the largest private landowner. And so I am like, if my two minority religions of Islam and Christianity own the majority of the land, and there is a huge population of landless in India, where should they go and demand their little share of a land, right? And so it kind of, yeah, go ahead.
Not to forget that this land is our own land, the land of the land of Indians. This was taken away by the Europeans and given away free to the churches. So basically stole our own property and gave back to those churches. And today these churches own them as good as private lands and commercialize them. And they churn out a lot of income. They sell the properties. So one is these minorities hold huge pieces of land. And just to add to whatever you said, just one big church, one big denomination church in India, the transaction is as good as the budget of the Indian Navy. The amount of money that churns out in the church is as good as the budget of the Indian Navy. So we're talking about an industry itself. So there's a lot that's going behind in terms of this persecution narrative, in terms of this minorities being oppressed. And I think it's time that we place the information and data and the facts on the table and do not give ear to these fake narratives. As far as New York Times is concerned, I wanted to bring to your notice, we read a lot of news. We keep a tab of all these foreign agencies which churn out a lot of information about us. I remember, I just read out one, you need to give me a minute. I'll just pull out one information. This was on 28th of March 2022, because the information is very new. This was written by Samir Yasir. Samir Yasir writes on the New York Times. Anybody can go and check. General strike throws India into confusion. This is on a day when I went to work and we didn't know anything because we went to work and we came back. And when we came back, we read this news. And we were shocked to know that there was a strike in our own nation. Absolutely, we didn't know about there was a strike because it was business as usual. So this is the kind of information what New York Times publishes. So I think we all need to vet these kind of information which is being published in such popular and actually credible, once upon a time, a credible news agencies. Today, we see a lot of information which is not true at all.
That's a very good call out, Jerome, because I think we are going to send that as a clip to New York Times.
You must do that. You must do that, because we always shocked because we came back from work and it was business as usual. As usual.
So here's another one. Open Doors. It's a missionary organization, ranks India number 10 as the most dangerous country for Christians. And so in number 10 means the other top 9 are not great places. They are Afghanistan, Somalia, Syria. So India is one of them. What do you think?
So we really want to know. In fact, I remember speaking about this some time back. This is, in fact, when we get into the root of this whole classification of India being the most dangerous place for Christians to live, this is manufactured. There's a fake manufacturing factory here in India called Persecution Relief. Persecution Relief is an organization which is purely built to manufacture fake information and churn it out. Because when I read information about India's persecution across the globe, almost everybody quotes Persecution Relief. And if I see Persecution Relief is the organization which has been churning out, cooking these fake information and spreading across the globe. So when we actually, most of the cases, when you actually go deep into these cases, these are, first of all, cases which does not have any depth. These are not cases at all of persecution. And then if there is any cases, it would be a very minuscule case where it's a remote case, where it would not be involved with anything to do with communal violence itself. It would be more of a civilian case or a criminal case, which was a personal issue. But these have been constructed by vested interests And I'm sure all of us know who these Western interests are. And they've been unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that the taxpayers' money has been used in the US to brand India, because USCIRF, I'm sure, is a tax-paid organization. Yes. And it only talks about how callous this agency has been, without even vetting the veracity and the depth of this information. It's a very unfortunate thing, and actually it puts us, it makes us start doubting about every action what Western nations perform and do nowadays.
You know, so apparently there are a couple of Indian American organizations in the US. CoHNA is a Federation of Indian American Christians of North America, and they collude with Indian American Muslim Council. And publicly, the head of CoHNA, John Prabhudas, has said he's been challenged by Christians in India. Why do you work with Indian Muslim organization or Indian American Muslim organization? And he said that is the only way he finds that he can promote this story of oppression, right? So it's not the truth that they stand for. And I have to say, there are Christians from my own state who are part of CoHNA, and they are in this business of, promoting propaganda. The one question I have is, when did Christianity arrive in, let's educate everybody. When did Christianity arrive in India?
Historically speaking, I think in the 52 AD is when Christianity is supposed to have come to India. But let me add to this. India has had trade relations with the West, especially Rome, Greece, and other nations, because we were a very thriving nation, and there was a lot of influx of Europeans into India. Obviously controlled by the Arabs, because that's the reason why Europe tried to find a new sea route to India. So there are, as far as the land is concerned, we had the trade route, and there was a lot of movement of people from the West, and that's how, I guess, Christianity came to India. So much so that when the Europeans, the Portuguese, came to India in 1498 AD, they were shocked to see that there were Christians already present in India. So India has a legacy of giving shelter to refugees, to migrants, to the oppressed, to the persecuted, all across from time immemorial, because we believe that the world is one big family. The Vasudhaiva Kutumbikam is what we propagate. And we believe that everybody has a right to seek salvation the way they want to. And it's not the our idea of religion is not the only way. You can follow any way you want, as long as you don't impose it on others.
So for 2000 years, Christians have lived in peace in India. And I believe every time a community came and asked for refuge, the local Hindu king received them and usually gives them rights kind of etched onto a copper plate. So yes, it is permanent, right? It's permanent. And that right it allows them to settle in, live their religion, live in harmony with everybody, own land, build their churches. Same for Jews and Parsis and everyone. So for 2000 years, Christians in India have lived in harmony with the rest of the population. In the last few, I would say a decade or so, there's a sudden anxiety, right? So I would like to address this one point. So USCIRF's report talks about the Citizenship Amendment Act. Actually, I have to say it is very badly named, probably should have been named the Persecuted Religious Minority Protection Act, right? These are persecuted minorities coming from 3 countries, Islamic countries, neighbors to India, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. These are 31,000 people stuck in India's refugee camps, and the law allows them to fast track their path to citizenship. When this law happened, I can speak to my Christian classmates' reactions. I was seeing streams of WhatsApp videos by Christians in the state of Kerala saying, hey, what about Ahmadiyya? What about this? What about that? And I'm like, but these are Christians also fleeing Pakistan. Don't you know? No, they had not read the two-page CAA. And for the first time in my life, I saw my Christian classmates go out and march against CAA in India. They have never been activists. Now they are activists. So it kind of bothered me. And let me tell you, my Christian friends in the United States told me, oh, Sudha, this is the government's plan to kick out the Muslims first and then the Christians. And I'm like, for 2000 years, you didn't have a worry. Now you have a sudden worry because of what? And so I just want to ask you, the CAA being brought back by USCIR, by the Christians, some Christians, how relevant is that for the community?
So I have two explanations, because you spoke about oppression on the first part, and the second one you spoke about the CAA. I will speak about both these aspects. As far as oppression is concerned, it is not 2000 years old. It is oppression of Christians happened in India. And I think your Keralite friends need to know it, that Christians were oppressed in India. When the Portuguese came to India, the Syrian Christians in India, who were the original Christians who came from Syria and other parts, were persecuted by the papal bull, by the Pope's order, which is called the Inquisition. The Syrian Christians bore the brunt of it. And as of today, even today, the Syrian Christians speak about it. So as far as oppressions, persecution, and destruction of Christianity is concerned in India, it has its roots. It is as old as 1498 AD. When Vasco da Gama came to India, the missionaries came, Francis Xavier came, he asked for the papal bull, and the Catholic Church massacred thousands of Syrian Christians. Probably the Kerala Christians who are speaking today have forgotten it. They need to go back to the ancestral history and read it, and then speak about the CAA. Second instance when Christians were butchered in India was by Tipu Sultan. Okay, many people have forgotten that Tipu Sultan, who was a tyrant, who was in the process of establishing an Islamic nation in India, actually butchered Christians. And Kerala bore the brunt of it. Kerala somehow seem to have forgotten it. They need to remember and go back to their history to find out if Hindus were actually responsible for any kind of persecution to them. So Hindus never persecuted any of these Christians. It is a lie, because we hear this kind of information and news very lately, and these are manufactured fake information about persecution. So we can absolve very clearly from these narratives that Hindus were never persecutors, because they always welcomed anybody and everybody into this country. And due to the magnanimity is why all of us are living in this nation. As far as the CAA is concerned, people have forgotten, especially Christians. I think Christians have been very ungrateful by protesting on this particular act. I'm quoting it, very ungrateful attitude of the Christians by opposing this Citizenship Amendment Act. The Citizenship Amendment Act gives privileges to those minorities who've been persecuted in these three nations, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. Today, there are no Christians in any of these nations. Who is remaining, the few remnants who are remaining are living not just second class, not just third class, they are living the worst ever lives. And the Christians in India need to know about it. There are no Christians who is there as Christian have become either converted or have been butchered. I'm sure people have forgotten a lot of instances and incidents how Christians have been framed of blasphemy, violating the blasphemy. For example, there's the story of Asia Biwi, who's now in Canada, who because of one single lady, there were so many assassinations. There were turmoil in Pakistan because she was absolved by the Supreme Court. The Christians in India do not know these sad stories. Asia Biwi finally had to flee the nation. There was an assassination. The Supreme Court, I think the Supreme Court judge was assassinated because he freed her. And for a simple reason, because she drank a glass of water from a well, which is not supposed to. Okay. Second thing is this: many Indians are crave for cricket. Many of our followers of cricket. What happened to Yusuf? Yusuf is the captain of the Pakistan team. He's the erstwhile captain of the Pakistani team. He was the only Catholic from the Pakistani team. Now, what is he now? Either convert or perish. Wow. He had to convert to survive in that nation. Many Christians living in this nation have not seen the other side of life. I think to a large extent, Christians who have gone to the Gulf, who have been ill-treated and had a second-class treatment, come back with good stories about life of Christians in India.
You know, to that same point, I read that the current Indian government rescued a Jesuit priest who had been in jail in Afghanistan for 18 months. The current government brought him back to the country. Similarly, Father Tom, who was got entrapped in Yemen, and when the trouble happened there, he had to be rescued. This government was able to bring them back. Plus, this government brought back 40 to 50 Indian Christian nurses from Iraq. Yes. We don't hear any talk about it. My Christian friends do not know anything about it.
No, forget about them knowing about it. I was very shocked. In fact, I questioned all these people. Where were they when the CAA was introduced? Had I been one of the victims and been rescued, I would have gone all bonkers and told the world that this is what the minorities are suffering. I felt that these people who were rescued were ungrateful again to this nation for first rescuing them. Second thing is not being vocal about the life in these nations, and also again vindicting the current government.
So basically you're saying they could have come out and spoken in favor of the CAA because they had been rescued and they got a life back. Oh. Instead, they stayed silent. So they are complicit.
Absolutely.
In
yes.
And
Father Tom, in fact, Father Tom, one of the very prominent Catholic priests, was rescued. I expected him at least to come out in the open and speak about it, but he's obscured. He's gone obscure. So
I see. They run away. They run away instead of standing up strong.
Absolutely.
Okay. So one other thing now I want to touch upon is the third agency, Freedom House. Freedom House rates India partially free because they said democracy has deteriorated and the plight of the minorities is in serious doubt, etc. And I just want to point out one thing. There are 3 states in India that are majority Christian. When we say majority Christian, it's not 50%. It's 88 to 90% of the population is Christian. We have 2 states or 1 state and a territory that are 98, 95% Muslim. I just want to understand what partially free democracy means, because I don't know of any state in the United States where the Hindu majority in California. No, there is no Muslim majority in Michigan. It could happen. What would a Judeo-Christian nation then say about democracy in the US? Or what if Belgium, that province, Molenbeek or something, I'm not saying it, maybe pronouncing it right, but that state could go a majority Islamic. How would the Christian Europe look at that? So when I think of this partially free, it's very, very controversial in my mind. Here is a nation that allows states to be majority in a different faith, accepts it, and integrates them, invests in them. So, I just can't, understand that.
Freedom House, I think, yes, I remember reading this news very recently. What does democracy mean? There's a free and fair election. People elect the representatives, and that's run by an independent organization called the Election Commission. Right? We have an election commission which is independent, which has got its roots in every part of the nation. It ensures that nook and corner of the nation, the people, the citizens have the access to vote. Okay, and what does democracy means? As long as people vote and people are able to elect their representatives, there is democracy. So I'm at a loss of words to understand on what context did Freedom House declare India as partially free. What I want to substantiate their thought process is this. Probably they're not able to digest the fact that India is growing democratically, and I see a pattern across the globe with certain nations, and also the left, the woke mixture and the cabal, which is targeting India in all platforms. They're trying to arm twist India into to not to be what they want India to be, a weak nation, like what it was prior to 2014. 2014, things have changed. India is no more going to take it the way, straight on the face. They're going to give back. And I'm sure many of you would have seen India's stand on several issues. We've been very strong, and we've been able to say no to certain questions asked. We've been able to take our own stand. That is something which I guess a lot of these organizations are unable to tolerate and digest. And that is the reason why they are using the mode of expressing it through these reports, whether it is the Freedom House report or the USCIRF report, the Open Doors report, anything. So we see, this is something which they are not able to digest. And that's the reason why these callous reports are being published.
With the three states, I think it's Mizoram, Meghalaya, and Nagaland. I read before the 2020 election, I read an article that said some Christians in Nagaland have said, if the Hindus are going to come and try to change us, America is going to come to our defense. Because it's a Baptist church. And I was like, oh my God, they live on the land of India, Bharat, and they're expecting America to come to their defense. Where do you think all of this is coming from?
This is not new, because I remember down south in Tamil Nadu also, there is a pastor who wrote a letter complaining about India to President Trump sometime back. I remember going through the news, and he had written saying that they need to be rescued. So, see, one thing is very clear. We spoke about the three states which have become Christian. See, we are a nation which is free nation. Organically, anything grows, we are okay with it. But when it becomes inorganic, when it becomes a planned, designed idea of converting a certain state or converting a certain demography into a certain religion, then there is a problem, because it disturbs the whole ecosystem of our nation. And that is something which I don't agree, and I'm sure many of us in India, we don't agree, because we have given the freedom, but then when they get concentrated on a certain state or a certain place, then they tend to behave unnaturally. I will give an example. I remember, I think it was, I don't know whether it is, since you mentioned Nagaland or Meghalaya, one of these states, which is a 98% Christian state, when there was a governor, constitutionally appointed governor, was sent to be the governor of the state, the Christians were up in arms saying that we do not want a Hindu governor. Oh. This is what we do not want. This is what we see as a danger. And this is what I have been cautioning and I've been talking about. Because when you convert from being as Swami Vivekananda said, when you convert from a Hindu to a Christian, Hinduism does not lose just one person, but you also have an anti-Indian incubating. And this is a very shocking news. When a constitutionally appointed governor was opposed by this particular state, saying that we do not want a Hindu governor. So, so these are the realities which do not come on mainstream media. and we as a nation have been managing all these kind of disturbances. So to summarize, the freedom that has been given has, won't you agree that it's been misused?
Basically, what you're saying is that when these conversions have happened and states have become predominantly Christian, they have become anti-nationalist. I understand sometimes they will even say, "You Indians," as if they are not Indians, right? You Indians. I hear that happens in Kashmir. It happens in Goa, although Goa is only 50% Christian. So it really changes them. They are no longer, they don't have an allegiance to the land of their birth and of their ancestors. Their allegiance is somewhere else. And also it disconnects them from the, Nagas.
From the very root.
Yeah, Nagas, their cultural roots, which is actually very dangerous because especially with the climate action and all that, Nagas were very much in tune with the nature. So a lot of things are lost, I feel, when you lose your identity. And so that I don't care if a state is a Christian, Muslim, or Hindu, as long as diversity is respected. And so when these are majority non-Hindu faiths, they have no diversity. They have no diversity of faith, no diversity of thinking or thoughts, do not welcome others, which is very dangerous, right?
So this is something that Hindus need to realize, because your inclusiveness is becoming your own weakness. See, there is a huge difference between the Abrahamic religion and the Hindus. Hindus are inclusive, while Abrahamics are exclusive. So both these will not gel. So unfortunately, the Hindus are in deep slumber, thinking that we will accept and we will mingle with everybody, but they do not realize that the very existence is being eroded. There is an erosion that's happening, and these Abrahamic religions will, the whole conversion activity, whether either to this religion, is nothing but eroding the culture. Nothing short of saying that it's called cultural terrorism.
It's a cultural genocide.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. I just also want to now talk about being a minority. I mean, you're kind of clubbed together in a big class of minorities. The biggest minority is a Christian. Is a Muslim. So how does a Christian minority survive in this bucket of minorities? Do you have equal access to benefits, positions in minority organizations?
I was speaking to a very senior leader recently in Karnataka, who is a very senior Christian leader, and he was expressing that I've seen it, but then he expressed very openly, saying that in the whole minority ecosystem, there is a huge division between one community and the rest of the communities. So there's one community which eats 80% of all the grants. Incidentally, there are a lot of grants that the government gives to the minorities, and these grants are devoured by the majority minority community. And the Christians, the Parsis, the Buddhists, the Jains are left with breadcrumbs. And I understand that there is some kind of a request that is going back to the government, saying that there needs to be some kind of a solution that needs to be arrived.
That sounds, I think it's a very fair ask, because the minorities need to have equal access to the opportunities. I did host an Indian Muslim woman a few weeks ago, and what she said was that even within the Muslim minority, the positions are all taken by the upper caste Muslims, and sounds like there is a huge caste system in Islam which most of the world doesn't know, but the 85% of the Muslim population is the lower caste, the Pashmanda. They do not have access, but they are also starting to speak up. So I'm just hoping that your request and the Pashmanda request go to the government, so there is equity, right? Because when I look at the general presence of Christians, minorities in all sectors of government or private and public life, I see Christians everywhere. I see Christians in the Indian Supreme Court, Christians, business members, billionaires. I have to say there are two CEOs, at least that I know of, from India in Silicon Valley. They are twin brothers, Korean brothers. They are CEOs of big tech companies. And Bollywood has a lot of Christian presence. So from a point of a minority having access to opportunities, I don't see any problem there, Jerome. I don't know from your side, do you see anything?
Absolutely, absolutely. There are enough opportunities. In fact, there's a reservation system which gives reservation to the minorities. And as I mentioned in the beginning, it puts the Hindus, majority Hindus, on a second-class cadre when it comes to opportunities. So there is actually, I would say, there is no equality. I would say there's no equality here, though the Constitution promises equality. The whole reservation system has actually jeopardized equality. For me, I would recommend, personally, my personal recommendation is, if ever there should be some kind of a reservation, some kind of a benefit that needs to go, it has to be purely based on the economic status of the person rather than a religion or any other, or a caste or anything else, because you have minorities also who are millionaires, and you have the lower caste also who are millionaires. So it should not be caste based, or it should not be religion based. It should be more of an economic base.
Yes, I have two thoughts on it. One is that the Kerala government, which is a communist government, I want everybody to know that the Communist Party is a political party in India. At one time, I think maybe even now, it's the richest political party in India. It has been running the state of Kerala for a long time. And I have seen job advertisement for government jobs that say, only newly converted Christians need apply.
Absolutely.
I mean, there is a separation of, church and state, nothing. The other thing I want to say is that only Hindu temples are managed by the government, state governments. They consider that as their personal kitty, right? They can put their hands in the kitty, do whatever they want. But the rich Muslim and the Christian churches are not affected, as far as I understand. I don't know if they pay any taxes at all. Maybe you can enlighten us on that.
No taxes. If I'm not wrong, there are no taxes, completely exempted. Thanks to the Constitution. Thanks to the Constitution of our nation, which was drafted and enacted in 1950, gives sweeping opportunities, and it gives almost everything on a platter to the minorities. As you mentioned rightly, the Hindu temples are under the control of the government, whereas the minorities, the Christians and the Muslim, the mosques and the churches don't come under the purview. And there is a great need to track it, bring it to some kind of attraction, because what we see is this: there is unscrupulous growth, unproportionate growth compared to the population. In fact, I've been asking the government that they need to bring in some kind of a regulation and some kind of a registry, because there is they are unaccounted now. As I told you, as I mentioned in the beginning, I give you statistics: 349 churches, just 4 denominations. We have around 109 denominations in Bangalore alone, 349 churches. And there is no regulation. Absolutely. See, this is the data which I have, because it's a painstakingly made data, and this is a credible information. But the government does not have that information because there's no regulation. And it's high time the government puts in regulation, or else it is going to be detrimental for the sovereignty of this nation. I'm repeating, it will be detrimental for the sovereignty of this nation.
I believe I completely agree with you, because I do have an issue with this terminology of minority, majority. I kind of feel like Christianity is the largest religion in the world, the biggest religion in the world. 2.4 billion is Christians. Second largest religion is Islam at 1.9, and racing ahead to catch up with Christianity. The Hindus are around 1 billion, right? All of the others are way behind. So this whole concept of minority needs to be rethought. The Christians and Islam are not indigenous faiths to India, but the people are indigenous. You are indigenous to the Bharat, but your faith is came from outside. It is all fine and good, but this designation of minority majority needs to be changed. And I call that out because when you think about the state of Kashmir, which is 98% Muslim, 2% minority, the 2% Indian Hindus are considered majority by the government. They do not get into
likewise in many states. Likewise in many states. So, I think around 7 states, the Hindus are in minority. 7 states.
So when the world is all about, in protecting the indigenous rights and this and that, they're only thinking about the poor 6 million Native Americans in North America, maybe a handful of, I don't even know if there's a million Native Americans left in South America. They were completely decimated, okay? But they don't look at the Hindus as an indigenous population. Like, I'll tell you, my community in India, on both sides of my family, our family has been in the same places, for at least 500 years, right? On my dad's side, on mom's side. My community has been around for 3,000 years because there are records, and like you said, the Greek and the Romans about my community. So I kind of feel like I am indigenous, right? So if I'm not indigenous, who is indigenous in India, right? And shouldn't my community, my faith, my traditions, and my culture be protected? Isn't that worth protection? So this is where I have issue with the concept of minorities in India. So anyway, so basically, I'm trying to see if there are any questions. I'm going to ask the audience if there are questions. I'm just, I don't know if there is anything on YouTube, if somebody could post it here, or I could maybe monitor. But we'd love to have some questions from the audience. I think we talked about a wide variety of things. I would like to have a follow-on session, Jerome, with you, just to focus on the USCIRF and Open Doors and maybe Freedom House. We can take apart their report. And going forward, I would like to see if from India, the minorities can send, like you, can send a report to USCIRF and say, hey, do not silence me. My voice is important. This is my experience. And I can, I want to see, I'm happy to debate with you. But when you repeat the same crap every year, and every year for the last 3-4 years has been CAA and farmers protests and Stan Swami, but nothing about Father Tom or the Jesuit priest being saved.
Incidentally, even the Father Stan Swami is a very cleverly placed narrative. Because when he passed away in a Christian hospital. He didn't pass away in a godforsaken place. He was taken care by the church-run hospital. Okay, and he was not in jail when he passed away.
Yeah.
So people need to know that. Please do not throw muck without understanding the gravity of what you are doing. People very cleverly speak about Father Stan Swami. I think people should know how did Father Stan Swami pass away. And I saw some very, very, very dirty news articles and editorials about Father Stan Swami and the current government. And I think I have all the right as a citizen of this nation to stand up and say that these editorials are lies, pure lies.
Very true. I agree with you, because he was taken to a hospital of his own choice. So if we have a question, do Indian Christians also have special personal laws like Indian Muslims? Like Indian Muslims are able to practice Sharia. Does the Indian Christian have their own personal laws?
Yes. There is a Christian law. In the constitution, yes, the minorities have, likewise, like the Muslims, they have the Christian law also. Yes, there is a
the Muslim law. Muslims have the Muslim law. Yeah, what
Muslim.
I've heard is this, Jerome, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So I believe the Hindu law has been modified several times. So we now have very clear guidelines on marriage, divorce, inheritance, and adoption, and children's rights, etc. But the Sharia and the Christian community haven't really invested in what I would say coming to modern times. The Christians in India, I believe, have sometimes aligned with the Hindu law. When it, for example, there's a famous case of Mary. What's her name?
Yes.
Mary.
Yeah.
Mary Roy. Yeah.
So I wanted to understand the double standards in the constitution of our nation, which says that you can choose, for example, if you are not able to get the reprieve from your personal law, you can approach the secular law. Right? So this is like, for example, if you're not able to get justice because of your personal law, then you can approach the secular law. I think that's the same case what you're speaking about in terms of the Mary's case.
Mary Roy went to court after her divorce and demanded equal rights to inheritance of her father's property because the Christian law, prevalent law, says women are given dowry and then that's done, right? No rights to. So that is a point. Do they have inheritance rights today, just like the Hindus?
Christians, I remember. It's not like the typical Hindu laws. No, there is a different law for the Hindus and a different law for the Christians. In terms of inheritance and in terms of the wife's share and all that stuff. I am sure I don't have too much of information on that now, but there's definitely a demarcation. There is a law for the Hindus, there is a law for the Muslims, and the law for the Christians when it comes to personal law. But when it comes to the criminal law, it is not the same. For example, if you look at the Sharia law itself, Sharia law has both the civil law and the criminal laws, right? For example, for the Muslim, if you look at the Sharia law, it has the civil and the criminal law in the Sharia law. But it's so cleverly planted in the Indian constitution that when you are judged for the civil law, you are judged by the personal law. But when you're judged for the criminal law, you're not judged by the personal law, you're judged by the secular law. Because the law says very clearly there, if you steal, your hand should be chopped. But that is not adopted here. It's a secular law which is adopted. So this is the double-edged or the stepmotherly treatment what Hindus have finally got is what I would say.
So actually, there are some questions. So one point is that the data you shared on Christianity earlier, we'd love to have that so we can put it into articles, or you can help write an article with us to publicize this within the.
I will share the data, plus I will share the URLs from where I picked up.
Okay.
Which has the names of the churches, the numbers of the church, the mobile numbers of the churches, and the addresses of the churches.
Yeah.
And this is specific to Bangalore only.
Okay, wonderful. And so there's a question about Mother Teresa, but I don't think we have time to talk about it today. I think we should have a separate session on that later. There is also a question about how can India be a secular country if all these different religions live by different laws? Shouldn't everybody be under a secular law, the same law? Because when they come to United States, they have to follow the United States laws, secular laws, right? Or Judeo-Christian laws.
See, when the Constitution, I would still go back to the book, which is the Constitution. If you look at the Constitution, it was a mixture of it was picked up from different nations. And I also understand that there was a proposal to have a Hindu law for everybody. But unfortunately, the Constitutional Assembly itself was, I would say, invaded by vested interests who didn't allow certain things to happen and who ensured that some things happen in the Constitution. This is something that we should discuss a little later. And Mother Teresa is my favorite. Mother Teresa is my favorite. We must have another session because I would really talk about her.
So on the laws, we'll set up a separate session to talk about the Uniform Civil Code, the National Register of Citizens. Every country wants to know who are their citizens, so benefits can be provided equally. But when India talks about NRC, here the USCIRF is saying India is discriminating, right? We should have a session. There are a couple more questions about conversion rates in certain states in India, and then the question about what are the global groups that have vested interest in propagating the minority oppression. What do you think? In general, who's propagating the minority oppression narrative?
Definitely, what is very clear is CoHNA is very clear. It's a neighbor there. This is one big organization which are a bunch of evangelists, Indian evangelists, who have migrated to the US, who are remotely controlling the activities of the church, and at least one of them has been declared persona non grata, which means he cannot come back to India. And I have been writing letters and appealing to the government that all these people who have been involved in bringing disrepute to this nation, members of the CoHNA, need to be declared as persona non grata, which means that they should be barred from entering this nation anymore. And they need to be scrutinized and they need to be investigated of all the activities. This is the source. In fact, if you look at every evangelical, most of them who speak have a backing of the evangelical. And these are the people who've been trying to induce conversion through different sources. They've been funding in the garb of service. And when this thing comes out in the light is when the nation wakes up and there's a backlash on these organizations. And these are the organizations which have been speaking time and again about oppression of the minorities, especially when it comes to Christians, because their agenda of converting the poor through allurement and through conning them is becoming unsuccessful because it is coming out in the open.
I think the poor people in rural parts still are gullible, right? So that is where the lynching of the couple of Hindu monks happened in Palghar. Correct, not yes. A word of it in USCIRF report or anyone. And that is because poor people, they just don't have the wherewithal to understand what's the global narrative, and they kind of become gullible, right? So that's a danger.
No, I wanted to add something. When a Hindu is lynched, it is not persecution. Only when a Christian is attacked or something happens, it's persecution. Because a Hindu is a pagan, is a second-class citizen. I think everybody needs to understand this. You classify Hindus or the non-Christians as pagans, Gentiles, second-class citizens. So anything can happen to them. But nothing should happen to the Christians, because the moment anything happens to the Christians, then it becomes persecution and hell breaks down.
I know. That is where I'm like, the 2.4 billion Christians are all worried. Oh my God, something is happening to my community in India. 2.4 billion against 1 billion people. And we do not proselytize, which is the reason the Hindus don't consider anyone infidel or kafir. Everybody Absolutely. Is the same. And we don't have a need to radicalize, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a big difference. So I think we're at about time. I want to wrap up with a couple of questions on the Pew Research. So the Pew Research survey of 2021, I want to ask everyone in the audience, go Google Pew Research 2021, read, take it out and in your conversation with your family and community and everybody. So the Pew Research said, religion is very important to all faiths in India. And I think that's true. Look at the churches, the people who attend churches, the mosques, the temples. And the funny thing is that they all go to all three. Hindus will go to Muslim mosque or a Christian church. Christians will go to Sabrimala, right? Muslims go to Sabrimala. There is a kind of appreciation at certain levels, which is the target of these vested groups to kind of break, right? So religion is very important, I guess. We just established that is true, right? Every religion thinks religion is important for them and the freedom to practice. So Indians across all faiths believe they have religious freedom. Is that true, Jerome? Indians across all faiths believe they have the freedom to practice their religion in India?
No, because I will disagree to that, because at least when it comes to the Christian community, when it says freedom to practice the religion, that means that they must be the sole thing that differentiate freedom for the Christian community is to give them a free hand to convert everybody, hook or crook. That freedom, I think there is a tightening of those noose that is happening now. I must confess that. Because
so you're saying that they have freedom to practice, but they also believe other people need to practice their faith.
No. They have absolutely freedom to practice. What does it mean to practice? Practice means to go to church, go to the temple, go to the mosque. That is absolutely there. But the Christian community which is complaining today is that they don't have the freedom to convert. So for them, freedom of religion means freedom to convert anybody and everybody by hook or crook. No, I'm sorry, I will retract that word. It is not anybody and everybody, because the Christians will not try their luck on the Muslims.
Wow.
They will try only the vulnerable Hindus. I'm calling a spade a spade. I mean, I'm putting the facts on the table. Christians don't dare do it because they're very, very scared. It's uncharted territory for them.
So the gullible Hindu is prevented from living his or her life as a Hindu because the Christian church believes it's the church's duty to save their souls, and they must convert, right?
Yeah. It's a pious duty. It's a pious duty.
It's a pious duty. The last point I want to say is that Indian minorities expressed pride in being Indian, while, living amongst everybody. But being Indian is a matter of pride.
To a large extent, yes. To a large extent.
Yeah. And they also believe that Indian culture is superior. And that's an important point, because the Christians also practice a lot of their indigenous traditions as the Hindu tradition. Muslims practice the same, right? So that's very indigenous Indian culture. Do you think that? Yeah.
To a large extent, yes. I believe that, because keeping in mind that there are 33,000 surveys to a 1.4 billion population, I think to a large extent, yes, we can agree.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to wrap up today. Jerome, thank you so much for joining us so late in the night for you. And we will definitely come back, because I feel like there are several topics we need to pick apart in separate sessions. But I want to thank you for joining us and speaking out, and giving voice to your community, a minority religious community, but I would say the majority within your Christian community probably feel like you. That you have a good life.
Thanks, Lord. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah. Thanks to the audience and everyone who asked the question. Stay tuned, and we'll have more of these conversations, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.